Hey, welcome everybody. Glad to see all the smiling faces here this Saturday morning. Guys, it's great to be back. I want to thank each and every one of you who reached out to me during my time of being a little bit under the weather. I was very fortunate. I was telling someone earlier that I think I dodged a bullet, but more than likely I dodged a bomb. For those of you who aren't aware, I went into the hospital in June for a hornet sting that was causing my leg to swell and have major inflammation and stuff. While I was in the hospital, I got infected with another bacteria in the hospital. And they put me on antibiotics, but the antibiotics they had me on wasn't even on the spectrum for the bacteria that had infected me. That bacteria started eating away at my leg, and I had to have emergency surgery on my leg. Ultimately, I came to within about 24 to 48 hours of them having to amputate my leg from the knee down. So like I say, I dodged a bomb on this one. So that's what happened, and that's what was going. I was having to fight the infection while I was in St. Louis. It's a pleasure to be back. It's a pleasure to be to have the right antibiotics being treated now. In case if I start talking oddly, it's because of meds, and so I've got my hydrocodone right here. I've got proof that I'm on meds, so you guys can blame it on that. All right. I'm sorry. I did not bring enough for the whole class, but that's okay. I'm trying. I have not had a pain pill since 10 o'clock last night, and I'm trying to stay off of them because they have a tendency to make me somewhat drowsy and lethargic and a little bit off my game. So in order for me to try to host this meeting today, I'm trying to stay off the pain pills. But if it gets too much, then I will take one during the meeting and you'll see a change in my attitude. Okay. All right. First off, I'd like to welcome our visitors today. How many of you, this is your first meeting or first meeting back in a while? Please raise your hand. Oh, great. Man, this is great. If you don't mind, Marcus, I'm going to let you lead off if you don't mind. Could you please stand, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, what scale you model in, how you found Division I and everything.
I guess I found Texas Western, my trying to, and through there was a show that was a couple months ago. And I was able to meet up with Kenneth. Kenneth, gave me a lot of advice and got me to join the MRA. And then he told me about.
This is at the RPM show, I bet.
Yeah, it was at the RPM show.
RPM show, yeah.
Yeah, so that's how I got started. I've been off and on modeling since I was a kid. Primary scale is N scale. Got a lot of equipment in N scale. My dad worked for Continental Railroad back in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. So that's
Whereabouts?
Pine Bluff.
Pine Bluff.
Yeah.
I worked out of Tyler.
Oh, okay, nice. So yeah, my dad used to run trains from Pine Bluff to Tyler.
Yep.
Back in the 80s and 90s and stuff like that. So he retired. So that's pretty much me. New to Dallas. Moved to Dallas back in January. So I'm new to the area and stuff like that. And looking to meet each and every one of you.
Thank you, Marcus. Where do you live? Where's your home?
Capel for now.
Capel for right now?
Yeah,
okay.
for right now. I got another job just a couple of days ago, so I might be moving to the colony.
Okay.
That's
well, congratulations on the new job. Thanks for being here. Glad you're here. Who's next? Somebody raise your hand. Yes, sir. Could you stand up and you guys speak up so everybody can hear you?
Okay. So am I?
You're projecting well.
Out here? Okay.
You're projecting well.
My name is Mike Weiss. I moved back here, back to Texas from New Mexico, where I'd been about 13 or 14 years. I've been in Dallas 37 years. Last time I was a member of in Dallas was the South Side rubber modelers, and so I moved back, and I had more family here. I moved back to Fort Worth, and saw the club. I get the notices I'm on your mailing list. So I've been a NMRA member since I was a pup, and haven't done a whole lot with it. I was in New Mexico, where you really don't have a lot of active modelers. I was charged with Division 7 Road Runner Division. I was superintendent for a while.
Oh, great.
But we covered about 35 counties, and you get 6 or 7 people at a meeting.
Oh, wow.
So,
This is a little different for you then.
yeah, because the population, just wasn't there. We built a house out there. I had a layout, but actually I got the track wiring and had some of the scenery in, and then I had to sell the house and moved, and I really haven't rebuilt anything since. I am a Model HO, and maybe would like to do either, I don't know, modular or something, just to keep my hand in now and then.
I'm going to introduce you to a man in a minute that's going to have places for your hands to go.
So my interest right now pretty much is scenery. I enjoy doing the scenery and some buildings and stuff. So anyway, I guess I'll meet some of you all, and thanks for hosting the meeting.
Thanks, Mike. We're glad you're here. Yeah, Steve, could you introduce your guest, please?
I'm Steve Crise. I'm doing the presentation this morning. Yeah, this is my wife, Yoko. She's along for the ride. So, that's it. She doesn't model. Trains.
Trains. There you go. Yeah. I started saying, watch how you say that. All right.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
But I'm artist. The only thing.
Oh, that's right.
Only things are common with you guys. I paint the locomotive.
That's right. She's a hobby painter. She does locomotives and trains, especially on the Nevada Northern. So, around her, she will show you her paintings. So that's one thing that we do together.
And we are showing the exhibition in Paris, in Texas.
Oh, that's right.
His photograph and my paintings. It's theme is the portraiture in steam. So until the end of October. So it's 2 hours from here in Paris, but if you have time.
So if you find yourself in Paris, Texas, go to the depot and you'll see our show. You thought I talked a lot, huh?
She's your marketing director.
Thanks, Yoko. Glad you're here. Thank you. Who else? Who's another visitor? Don Murphy. Stand up.
You usually have to stand on a chair if people say. So, my name's Don Murphy. Some of you have probably been to my layout because I've been on usually the Plano show. I've been on it for a number of years. I model a St. Louis Atlantic and Pacific. It's a large railroad that handles 28 different railroads. Anyway, passenger trains out of St. Louis and Kansas City and all that. So I didn't my involvement in the past a number of years ago. So I'm glad to come back, and I'm looking forward to maybe being on the tours for the
Cool. Thanks, Don. Appreciate you being here. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Good morning, Marty McCoy, long-time modeler. I've been participating since COVID via the web meeting. So thanks to Mike and to Steve and Gordy, our president, for implementing the NMRAX. That's been a wonderful tool. I'm in Hazlet, Texas. I travel a lot. My wife calls me the burglar. I've been involved in trains and model railroading since I was a kid, even before kindergarten. It runs in my blood. It comes from the family. My grandfather retired with Chicago Northwestern. I think I have some of his DNA. I model HO, late 60s and early 70s, and I also secondarily worked in scale as well. And I have to admit, the reason I'm here in person is I've been wanting to get back in, and today's agenda was a magnet pulling me here. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Marty. Anybody else that I've forgotten? All right. Well, guys, in addition to our new guests and new members here, I want to welcome our back to our gallery view, please. I want to welcome our NMRA president. There he is, Gordy Robinson. And Gordy, you're muted right now, so you might want to speak to us. Say hello. First off, condolences to and somebody put him back on mute. There we go. Okay.
I can work the button. It's okay.
That's okay. Yeah, well, our technical staff is taking care of you there. Condolences to you in the UK for the loss of the Queen. Long live the King. So, Gordy, can you want to welcome you to our meeting? Thanks for being here and taking time out of your schedule from across the pond.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, it's good to visit again. Although if I keep visiting this often, I'll be permanent resident, I think. But I have a very busy afternoon. I've got a few clinics to do over the weekend, and obviously there's a lot going on here in the UK as well. So I just wanted to make the time to come and say hello to you guys and thank you for being members and for coming along to today's meeting.
That's great, Gordy. Anything that we should know about upcoming things that is on the horizon you want to share with us, or
Well, I'm sure you're going to share updates from St. Louis, but just a couple of things to call out. One, we launched the Women in Model Railroading Special Interest Group, and if you know of a lady in the hobby, or you are a lady who is a model railroader, or is just interested in model railroading or trains in general, then I encourage you to go and join that group, mostly because it costs absolutely nothing to join. That's the kind of groups that we like. And for those that want to support that group, it's not just only open to ladies. Gordy is member number 1, so that was my stipulation of firing the group up, and I said as long as I can be member number 1, we'll get it done. So that was launched in St. Louis, and if you go to the NMRA website, to the special interest groups page, you'll find all the details there. Also coming really soon, in the next 3 months, we'll be launching the NMRA interchange here worldwide, which will be a messaging tool for you to use to communicate with members all over the world. Think of it like the best way to describe it is a NMRA town hall that's online, that's permanently open for everybody, both for text, for pictures, for videos, and also for meetings to take place spontaneously on camera with anyone anywhere in the world. So it's a really good tool. I think it's going to connect folk really well. I heard there was somebody, I didn't catch the name, but I know there was somebody who's a guest or is just joining the meeting for the first time today who said they were in a part of Texas where you were 6 counties and only 5 or 6 members were turning up. I think with the NMRA interchange, you'll be able to connect with a lot more members if you were still in that situation. So I think it'll be a really good tool. But those are just the 2 things, Mike. I'll let you talk about all the other things.
All righty. Thanks, Gordy. We appreciate it very much. Anybody have any questions for the Prez? Yes, ma'am.
What is the link to the Women in Railroading?
If you'll just go to the NMRA website and look under special interest groups, then you can track down from there and drill into special interest groups, and you'll find Women in Model Railroading there.
It's alphabetical order, so if you go to the very bottom of the page, it's there.
Alphabetical order, so it'll be at the bottom of the page.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. All right. Also, we have on our, thanks, Gordy. From joining us from Winslow, Arizona, where he's standing on the corner, is Gerald Mabry. There's Gerald. Gerald, you're muted. You can say hi if you'd like. No, you don't want to say hi. Okay, that's fine. All right, that's fine. Go back to sleep, Gerald. Thanks, Gerald. Glad you're there. All right, thank you. All right. We've also got Cameron Pankey, who's joining us. He's one of our members. He's a youth member, but I think his adult partner has to work today, so he's able to join us remotely from our on our Zoom call. So glad you're here, Cameron. Thank you. Next, I want to thank the Texas Western Model Railroad Club for hosting us again. They do a great job here hosting us. Thank you for letting us do that. But I want to introduce the president, Mr. David Crumpton. Let you say a couple of words, David. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. First of all, if this is your first time here, welcome. This is the Texas Western Model Railroad Club. We've actually been a club for about 25 years, but in this location since 2014. So we're glad you're here. We're glad you could come. Before you get out of here today, take a tour around our layout. Every week, we're adding more scenery, finishing up wiring, especially on the lower level. So take time to walk around and look. Also, after the division meeting, the rest of the day, we consider open run for you. So if you have a locomotive that you want to run after the meeting, the layout is open for you to run. We have 2 programming stations up here with JMRI. If you want to do programming on your locomotive to change sounds into the decoders or whatever. So just welcome. We do have memberships available. In case anybody is interested, Trapper, where are you? Front door. Come over here so people can see what you look like. Okay. Man, good looking, man.
Oh my God, go back.
Down and back. Trapper is our CAO, Chief Administrative Officer. If you're here today, or if you know somebody that's looking for a club, Trapper will give you an application, point you in the right directions for getting started as an introductory member. We'd love to have you.
Trapper, don't go anywhere. Stay right there if you don't mind. David, don't sit down yet, please.
Okay.
Can you tell us about the garage sale and how it turned out?
Oh, we had a garage sale last weekend where we sold a lot of donated items. We made a little over $1,600. So, of course, that goes to rent. Yeah. So we are grateful for all the people that had items to donate. We sell items at a very, very low price. So the next time we have a garage sale, we'll get the word out. Come, we had tables, the whole room was filled with tables, and we had boxcars, locomotives, freight, any kind of car you can think of, passenger stuff, along with a lot of other equipment, scenery, books. We had a room full. So the next time we do a garage sale, we'll let you know in advance. Try to stop by and see if that treasure is here that you've been looking for. Because you never know. When we get donations, it could be a taco car, or it could be something really, really good. We never know until we open up the box. So we welcome you to come out to our garage sale. And Trapper and those of you in the club that were involved in the garage sale and setting up or running it, Jerry, Daryl, Jay, Clarence, anybody that was here to help us set up, Ken, thank you, John. Thank you all for helping us get it set up. It was very successful.
One final thing before you sit down. At noon today, something else is happening, I believe. There's a football game.
It's at 11.
11 o'clock. Okay, yeah, 12 Eastern, right? That's where that came from. 12 Eastern, 11 o'clock. And that's the Alabama is playing somebody else.
That would be the University of Texas.
All I want to say is welcome to the SEC. That's what I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. Welcome to the SEC. You can sit down now.
You got to start somewhere. You got to start somewhere.
Let's see. I want to thank Dwayne Richardson publicly. Where's Dwayne? Hiding in the back. Thank you, Dwayne, for stepping in last month on my behalf and hosting the meeting. Dwayne did a great job. Really do appreciate that. At this time, while he's standing here, I'm going to go ahead and run the agenda forward a little bit. Would you like to talk about the AP program, and do you have any awards?
I have a replacement to give to Mr. Crumpton.
Oh!
Since we had a typo in Mr. Crumpton's last month, I reached out to National, and they have printed you a replacement.
Oh boy!
So would you like to come up and get your official one?
And this is even after on my last project, I actually punched the walls that you didn't like. You still good?
Hang on just a minute. Mr. Lysing, would you use your phone and take a picture? No, don't do that. Don't do that. Never mind. I don't want to trust you for that. Let's see. Mr. Cowles, do you have your cell phone? I know you do photography on occasion.
So you want me to put the Snapchat faces on?
Yeah, don't do that. Yeah, don't do that.
With the dog nose.
Just there we go.
Or the cat?
And you can forward that to, if you don't mind, if you can forward that to me, I'll get it to Mr. Hager. Thank you. Congratulations, David.
That's 4 now?
That's 4.
Number 4, that was going to be my next
Hey,
question.
you want the envelope and everything? Take it
Yes,
home?
please.
No,
No.
don't
Keep it from getting,
end up.
that's correct.
So, Mr. Crumpton now's about halfway done,
Yep,
which begs the question, what are you doing here?
cars is next.
You got work to do?
Yeah, cars is next, and I'm also working on volunteer and stuff. You already got the
Good.
certificate.
Okay.
Yeah, technically. Yeah, use that one as a placeholder.
Yeah.
So we've talked about this a lot in the past, and I'm always going to talk about whenever I get a chance to have the camera for a few minutes. Seriously, if you haven't gotten involved in the achievement program, really give it some thought. It will make you a better modeler at the end of the process. The whole thing is geared to get you to reach, to try new methods, try new materials, try new construction techniques and things like that. It will not only make you a better modeler at the end of it, but you're going to find that your approach to modeling has changed. You're going to start looking at, not all right, I was going to do this before, I would have just done it out of styrene, but really this might need to be made out of brass to be structurally sound enough to hold up these locomotives, or whatever the case may be. And it's going to change how you will look at a model when you start going to everyone else's layout, because it is one of the occupational hazards of once you get used to looking at stuff, you start walking in and looking at everybody's railroad going, wouldn't have weathered that way, wouldn't have built that way. That building's got a lean to it, You start seeing it, and it is a bit of an occupational hazard. I get. I'm not going to say it. It ruins the model. Ruins the experience from now on. It doesn't. It changes the way your eye sees a model, and it will make your work that much better. And if you've got any questions about it, want to get started on it or whatever, definitely come see me. Come check me out. Information's on the LSR website. I'm available at these meetings. Want to talk after the meeting or whatever, let me know. And we got some models we're going to judge here after a while. So we'll, thank you. That'll be a cool one to
I
have.
brought those for today. I thought it'd be a nice test run.
Yeah, I agree. What Mike's talking about here is a copy of what they hand out to the national judges. And it's just a color-coded version of the same scoring matrix that's on the judging guidelines online. This will be a real handy for new judges to try to get a feel for where the scoring's really going to land when you start going through and picking out a number for these various categories. And I think this is going to be a really nice, useful little tool. The thing that I always want to kind of encourage everybody is it's a 125-point scale. 87.5 points is 70%. That means if your work is C- or better, it should make it. Period. It's just that simple. So it's not like you've got to come in and score 95 out of 100 or something like that. It's not that steep a challenge. So give your work some look, and let me know if you've got any questions. Send me some pictures if you'd like to, get a couple of thoughts on it and say, hey, is this, merit level enough, or, what do you think? I'd be happy to take a look at whatever you've got going on. They can bring it up here, like for show and tell. We can show it off. We can give it a score here if you'd like. I can come out to your house and we can score it for things like scenery and all that. We kind of have to come out to the house. If you're really wanting to get involved in it, really take a good look at the Golden Spike. It's kind of I like to jokingly refer to it as the gateway drug to the achievement program, but it is not a hard one to get, because if you've got 4x8 running at the house and at least HO, you're probably going to qualify, because you don't have to scratch build things for it like you do for the AP. You just have to have them out there and running. So it's a pretty easy one to get. And once you're an MMR, you're no longer eligible for it. But before you're an MMR, you can get as many of those things as you want. So if you're a guy that likes to, if you're a serial layout builder.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know you get multiple Golden Spikes.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, just
Learn something new.
building multiple railroads.
Yeah.
Some folks don't like to do that side of kind of
I didn't know
stuff. So,
that.
Yeah.
I thought once it was earned, it was it. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at any rate, if you got any questions, please hit me up. Always happy to talk to the AP because again, like I say, it will make you a better modeler at the end of the day, and anything I can do to help you improve your craft, so much the better.
Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Appreciate
Thank
it. Next, Mr. Ross. What's our attendance today? Does it include Gordy? Because I don't know if he's still on the call or not.
Give me just 2 minutes and I'll let you know.
Okay. While you're doing that, I want to talk to the group here for a second. If you'll remember 30, 60 days ago, well, more than 30 days ago, 60, 90 days ago, we were talking about how Division I was on the cusp of being the most populated division in the LSR. I am unfortunately have to report back to you that since that time, we've taken a nosedive in our attendance and our membership, and we are not where we were. We have now fallen down below 170 people, and 3 months ago we were at 185. Now I don't know exactly why we've lost some members, but we have. Hopefully we're going to rebound from that. We really would like to see that. But if you can, if you will, please invite a guest. Encourage people that you know who are not NMRA members to join. We're getting more and more interest, and we're certainly building momentum towards next year's national convention. We want to try to get as many people ahead of that as we can. So I'd really like to see Division I leading carrying the flag forward for the whole region. And I think we can do it. I don't think it's any major hill to climb. I think we can do that. One of the things is attendance. And Mr. Ross, you got a number for today's meeting? 45 today.
And there's some people that haven't signed in, Nate.
Oh, they may have snuck in without signing in on our sign-in sheet. Please, if you haven't, this is how we record our attendance numbers. So if you haven't signed in, please do so. Did that count the people online?
Yes.
It did. Perfect. Okay. So, yes, sir.
Can they keep the sign-in sheet out there till the end of the meeting?
Yes, sir.
Well, I've come late and there was no sign-in sheet.
That was because it would already been pulled while I was asking for this number. So, yeah. Well, Trapper's got it out front, so we'll keep it out there. Good point. Also, we have had a challenge for probably since March or April of making sure that everyone was notified of the meeting. We have gone through some transition, and I want to call on Steve Gradke right now to stand up and kind of give a report on some of the stuff he's been doing offline, rather online, but behind the scenes. Let me put it like that. To try to help make sure that everyone is notified about our meetings. Now, we've got a lot of folks here that are from other divisions, and we are glad you're here. He did not bring the notification numbers for outside of Division I today. But Steve, I'll let you kind of give us a report if you don't mind.
You are so kind.
Every guy.
This has not been a fun task for me, and I still don't know how I got involved. Do you?
I think I might have something to do with it.
Most of you probably know that I'm the webmaster. I have nothing to do with emailing. I have nothing to do with any notices we get. But
Well, you were the backup email guy. And Steckler was in the middle of, Dave Steckler is our regular email guy, but he was in the middle of his annual job when all this started happening. So enter Mr. Gradke.
sometime early in summer, late in spring, you may be aware that our address is at cowcatcherdivision.org. were attacked in a hacking situation. We were labeled as spam by several ISPs. And David, Mike were wading through trying to get all that correct. And we didn't know if it was totally possible to correct it all or not. But the decision was made by a group, not me, to move the website and all that mailing stuff to a location outside of Texas Western. We felt we were bothering this guy too much. You know those UT guys, they don't take the bother too well. And so I got a call, asked to move the website. That's exactly what they said, move the website. So I proceeded to get a new host space and move the website. I thought I could do it one way, found out I couldn't. So I had to get a lot of help from our website service company. And in the end of it, somewhere along there, I was asked, well, where's the mailing list? Now, you getting an email from this organization is called mass mailing. It's special because hundreds of emails go out at once. Actually, it's 258 emails go out at once. That has to be worked on so it's not spam. If you were to do that from your email address, it could hinder your relationship with your ISP. You could be a spam guy. So it's a very delicate situation. Now, I was asked, where's the mailing list? I said, I don't know. So I contacted the organization that's helping us move. They're our host for our web space. And they said, you can't move a mailing list. So we ended up having to recreate the entire mailing list for Division 1. And we did that by using the NMRA roster for June and July, both about the same. And so that was recreated. I sent out a test mail with some 175 addresses or something like that. And the result was I got a 28% response of you people saying you received the email. That told me that the email wasn't getting through. I could not believe that people were not opening their emails at Cowcatcher Division. All my bills, I'm paperless. Email is the most dependent thing we have. So, we started on a venture to move the mailing list to a completely new mailing process or something like that. And I started in on that. I'm not a happy guy for new technology. I hate change. I'm 81 years old and I do not like change. Your website is done in 1990s technology because that's when I learned how to do websites. So I attacked trying to learn how to use this new system for mass mailing. Everybody told me it was great. It's being used by Division 3 over in the east of us. So I wrote to Division 3 people and asked for help. And that gentleman sitting right back there wrote me an email, said he was willing to help. And then I got another couple of Division 3 people saying they would help. By then, I was so mad at that new system I had told I wasn't going to mess with it anymore. I was through with it. So I replied to them, I was through with it. Well, Whiny here was in the hospital. He calls me and said, please give it another chance. I think I got that right, Whiny?
I don't think.
No, he said Loopy.
Loopy, yeah.
He was taking advantage of his medication.
So I love you all so much.
So I gave it another try. Spent an entire day, and I mean an entire day on the contract. And I got a crack in the window. The next morning, I was able to send out an email to the leadership team. There's 18 addresses on the leadership team in this organization. This guy's on it, that guy's on it. There's several others here that are on it. So that didn't look too good either, because I only got about a 80% response. Well, an interesting thing, I'm gonna tell you a story. I'm gonna tell you a lot of stuff you didn't want to ever know, but now you know it. When people talk about your mailbox, it is not your inbox. The inbox is a subset of your mailbox on email. Spam section in your, or spam box in your mailbox is another subsection. Junk is another subsection. You could be getting an email from anybody, and it could go into your inbox, it could go into your spam box, it could go into your junk box, and maybe some ISPs even have over the box. So when you say you never got the email from us, be sure you look in those other mailboxes. Be sure it's not there. I've gotten that Cowcatcher division in my spam box. So what I did is I added the address at cowcatcherdivision.com to my email contact list. That gives you and you check the little thing about maybe you check the things that's only received messages from things in your email box.
It's called whitelisting.
So be sure that's all copacetic. Now, the story's going to start getting better. I was able on September the 2nd to send out an email, mass email to all of Division 1. Now, Big Brother is now watching you because the new system knows if your mailbox has received that email. It also knows if you've opened that email.
Only the return received is not disabled.
What?
You send an email to me, if I have it marked that I don't want sending back return receipts,
okay. Right.
then you'll never know if I've read it or not.
That's a good point. I should have brought that up. It depends on the ISP, your ISP, and your mail applications you're using. There's a thing called receipt or delivery. Delivery means you've got it. Receipt means you sent back information. Yes, I received it. And you can set that up in your email program to be automatic. So, email programs are all different. Now, the notice for this meeting went out. Can't hear the number, so the 267 addresses. And by that time, we had found out how many of our Division 1 addresses have been bounced. Bounce means two things. It's a hard bounce, meaning the email address that we have in the system for you is wrong. Or your ISP server has some kind of a problem with us. So, believe it or not, there were only 7 bounces in Division 1. And there were roughly 150 specific email addresses.
So let me jump in here real quick. When Steve said we sent out 278, that is because we have another list called Friends of, which is people outside Division 1 that have said, please keep us apprised of what's going on with Division 1. We want to know. That's one list. The Division 1 proper is a list. Division, Division 2, which is out of Louisiana, is notified of what we do. And also Division 5 in West Texas is also. So that comprises the 278 numbers. Okay? All right, now I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm making this too long, right?
That's fine. Jump right. Keep going.
We called Mike Connector for a long. I had to do several things. Whoa! Got my shot in. I had to do several things.
I'm just going to take a pain pill.
If you look at our roster from the NMRA, Mike Ross messes with it every month. It's his fun too. You live your retirement to do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I can't tell you how many times I've emailed headquarters and said, the email is wrong, you left the R out, or.
Yep.
There are
lots of emails. But the fact is, right now, we have 7 known problems with email addresses. Just 7 email addresses. So
That's pretty good, honestly.
Send me the list.
based on what our new email system tells us, what was it? 155 addresses received the email for today's meeting. For this meeting. And there are family members that are not included in that list because they share the email addresses. So there may be 2 family members or 3 family members, but only 1 email address. All this boils down to 100, there's an example right there, 1 address for 2 people. So it boils down to about 150 valid email addresses. After you take all the bounces out, and there's only 7 bounces. There's only 7 bad email addresses that I found. We're going to fix 1. Now, that's a 55% return, but there was only 7 bounces. That means 45% of the members of Division 1 that received this email in their mailbox somewhere did not open it.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, Steve. He's got a lot of work on this, folks. I mean, a lot of work.
You're not on that list, I just checked.
She's on Friends of list, so that's a different thing. So yeah. All righty. Let's see. Last month, I greeted you folks from St. Louis via Zoom. Want to give you a little report on National from last month. We had a absolutely amazing contingent from Lone Star region at National. I never expected to see the total number of people from our region that was there. I was glad that they were there. In addition to that, we had a number of people that at our registration booth and publicity booth for the next year's convention, people from all over the region just came up and said, how can we help? Which was absolutely fantastic. And we had a number of people. Joe Lysing was absolutely instrumental in helping that happen. I had another bout with my leg while I was up there. And amongst all the people from the LSR and the NMRA across the board who knew what I was struggling with, they kept telling me, leave, go back to your room, get your leg elevated, take care of yourself. And they just took over. So Joe, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Ken helped out.
Ken helped out.
I think Jay drove all the way to St. Louis just to do the registration.
I think it pretty much the close. That's it. Yeah. Everybody, Ken Kaiser, Jay Waters, Chris Mahan, bless his heart, Chris Atkins. I mean, it was just a whole cadre of people that were there. Names fail me for all the different people. Riley Triggs, he was there helping. I mean, everybody that was there to help. So thank you for that. We learned some things about what we want to do. We saw some things we'd like to improve on. Anything from how buses are loaded to when to pass out door prizes, to the way that we want to do our timetable, both digitally and in print, to just the operation of a national convention, which is different than what we do at a regional level. For instance, the contest room, all of the entries have to be in by Tuesday. The judging is on Wednesday and the awards on Thursday. And you have to pick up your models by noon on Friday. So that's a totally different concept than what we do at our regional conventions. So, I mean, just different ways and nuances. So we have to be able to be, we have to pivot, to use a term. We have to be able to pivot what we're doing to fit that schedule. So we learned a lot there. I think it's going to help us to be even better for next year for the 23 convention. We really are still looking for volunteers. If you haven't put your name on the volunteer list as a helper for that, we'll certainly find something for you to do. We need all the help we can get. Warm bodies to direct people, to just answer questions, to just be there to help. That's what we need. And so we really would appreciate you stepping up and raising your hand for that. Do you have any questions about that? Yes, sir. Jeff?
Contact David Crumpton for volunteers.
That's correct. Mr. Crumpton is going to be, has taken over. Chris Mahan had an accident in St. Louis, and he fell and broke his femur. And so he's currently in rehab. And he's asked if he could step aside because he needs to concentrate on rehab right now. So in his absence, Mr. Crumpton has stepped up to help with the volunteer process, and we really appreciate him doing that. So thanks, David, for doing that. So contact David if you want to raise your hand. If you need a piece of paper, I'll give you one, and a pen for anybody that wants to sign up today. Okay. All right. Upcoming events. At the end of this month, the first weekend of October, is the Plano Train Show. Russell Gifford, would you please tell us what you need?
I need bodies. A lot of people. I've been doing chilling this for the last couple of months, and unfortunately, I felt like I've been selling car warranties on the phone. Really need your help, guys. Right now, David's a big volunteer, Marcus, Ricky Allen, and that's it. And we have a lot of spots to fill the booth. The auto building, we have the extra train switchyard. I've got one of the clinics, I'm gonna be doing one of the clinics on Weston's, you still on the clinic we need to fill.
If you've been able to talk to Thomas Stevens yet? Okay.
So, please.
Guys, we really need you to raise your hands on this.
Jump in and help. It's my first time doing things, something. We always jump in at the last minute. So I'm an engineer. I like things in nice, neat little boxes. So I don't sleep very well at night. Okay?
He's been losing a lot of sleep, trust me.
Right. You know, it's pretty bad. I get buy stuff on eBay, did I don't look that. Anyway.
Wait, what?
Please step in and help. We give you a lot. It's 2 weeks away. There's a lot of stuff that's really good to do. Green at it. Got input. I would appreciate it. But please, come up, sign up, find a spot for us. We got spots for the registration booth. We got spots for our crafts. We got spots for the train. And just one more thing we need to go on.
We'll get the Ken Kaiser, yes, sir.
I'll be working membership all day Saturday. So if you want to learn how to recruit new members, I'll be there. I'll work with you, okay?
Thank you. If you will sign up, appreciate it. Thank you. That'll work for everybody out. Anyway, it's up here in front. Yeah. Yes, sir.
If I may just say, if you haven't volunteered before, it's actually a lot of fun. You get to hang out with your fellow modelers. You get to talk to people with similar interests, okay, and introduce them to the NMRA. And as Mr. Richardson will verify, you earn AP points for volunteers since it's an NMRA event. So it's a great way to spend a few hours on a Saturday or Sunday or both. You'll really enjoy yourself.
Like last year, actually going to be part of NMRA last year. I've been to the train show prior to that, but this will be my first year being in the NMRA. enjoyed it, and had to be wonderful people in the process, so the more we get, the better we are, and, we appreciate your help that you look at this place, because, I don't hard to improve on that.
I just tested the process.
I did too.
Anyway, that gives a lot of trust, I believe.
So last week, everybody?
First weekend of September.
October 1st and 2nd.
Friday set up, Saturday, Sunday, and it ranges in the morning, 5 o'clock on Saturday, 4 o'clock on Sunday.
If, I'm guaranteeing you right now, okay, and I'm fixing to put somebody on the spot, but I do that from this vantage point from time to time. Russell, turn around and look behind you. You see that gentleman that's sitting 2 rows over from where you're sitting in a red cap? Jim Ogden, raise your hand. If worse comes to worse and you do not have a clinic, that man's got 6 in his pocket.
Okay, what did I do here?
That's it.
Just got volunteered.
I said if worse comes to worse, okay? But he is absolutely a go-to guy for a clinic. Okay?
I'll do one on how to make moonshine, so.
But
If you need moonshine, I've got.
there you go. All
right.
There you go. Okay. One of the things that we've got different this year in some of the stuff that I've been talking to some of the major manufacturers, as working with the 23 convention, I was talking to the folks at Walthers, and they have got, I don't know if you're familiar with a project called Build a World. Have you guys seen that out there? Well, the head of sales and marketing has sent us 2 cases of Build a World models for us to use at the NMRA booth. So while typically we have somebody building something at the booth, they've sent us the models for Build a World for us to be able to build at the booth. And all we got to do is say, hey, this is a Build a World model from Walthers. And you can watch and do it. And then it can be a handoff from one person to the next. Work on it for an hour. If you want to keep working, work. If you don't, hand it off to the next person. And we've got a whole case of we got 2 cases of these things. One for the fall, one for the January show. I'm going to be passing it off to Russell at the meeting. I got him out in the back of the truck. So, I mean, we've got some really neat stuff going on. So that's something we can look forward to this fall. All right. Any more upcoming events that people want to talk about? Train shows, anything coming on there? Hello? Next week is Temple. All right. The Temple Train Show is next weekend. All right. Thanks, Daryl. Okay, Q&A. Anybody have any questions or anything that they're working on that they haven't, they're having problems with? They want to ask for a solution? Yes, sir.
Is anybody using any kind of software that's really good for making signs to go on your structures?
The one that probably you already have is PowerPoint.
Okay.
PowerPoint. I made signs in PowerPoint for probably a decade before I realized PowerPoint's true purpose is actually making slide decks for presentations. So I've been using it forever for doing that. The resolution is not as good as if you step up to something like CorelDRAW.
Okay.
CorelDRAW is a little on the pricey side because you got to buy the whole suite now instead of just buying just the product. But it is a graphics design package. It is a vector image graphics. So if you blow it up or shrink it down, if it's a vector drawing, excuse me, a vector drawing, you lose absolutely no resolution. If you take it, you build it in PowerPoint, and you blow the thing up real big, instead of a nice gentle curve, you get the pyramid-looking thing because it's pixelated. But yeah, PowerPoint will do for small things, and you can take it. And here's one that a lot of people don't know: you can take lettering and shrink it down, but only to the smallest font. But if you'll take your artwork, get it put together the way you want it, copy it, and then do a paste special and paste it back in as an image, then you can make it so small you can't read it. So If you really need some teeny tiny lettering, you can go that route with it. I mean, I used to do that to print decals with when I had my Alps printer up and running and all that. So
You can also download your fonts. Was it railfonts.com?
yeah, railfonts.com has got a lot of railroad oriented type of fonts. There's all sorts of free ones out there, and there's a lot of really nice ones if you want to pay a little bit for them. Some of them are as cheap as $5 and $10. Some of them get really pricey. So
one of the things that Dwayne did for me, I put together an HO scale treehouse one time, and with Dwayne's help, we put a checkerboard for the boys to be playing in the top of their treehouse, and we did an HO scale checkerboard with scale checkers on it. Okay, so you got to think about how small those checkers were at HO scale.
Or you go to your copy machine and you can select any percentage.
Yep.
Run it all the way down and copy it. If that's not enough, run it back through, take your copy and run it through and bring
And do it down some more.
You
Yeah.
So
Gary?
you don't have to have
I've got an
PowerPoint,
SD
anything like
box
that.
that I made up myself.
If you haven't made up sign already, yeah.
SD, lettering diagram.
Yep.
Free to anyone that wants.
So Gary has said if you're looking for fonts for the Southern Pacific, he's got them here and he's willing to share them. So raise your hand, Gary. See him later in the meeting. Okay. Anything else for Q&A? All right. Yes, sir. Daryl.
If you're looking for a particular font, advertising sign or building sign, railroad or whatever, there's a website called The Font.
The Font, yeah.
You can go there, they're free, you can see what they look like, you can even type in what you're wanting it to say, and it will show you what it's going to look like. But you can download those and use those, and they're free. They got, I don't know, several thousand.
Perfect. Thank you very much. All right. Anybody else? Q&A. All right. Show and tell. Yes, sir. Dave. Yeah, bring it up here.
Hi. Many, if not all of y'all are familiar with the railroad artist John Winfield. All right. In fact, one of his images on the homepage of Lone Star Region's website.
Division 1 website.
Division 1, thank you. Many of you know our fellow member, Ken Fitzgerald. He's a longtime friend of John's. What you may not know about Ken is the reason why he's a fan of the New Haven Railroad. It's because Ken grew up as a kid in Connecticut. His dad was a pilot for TWA, based in New York. Ken grew up in Connecticut. Well, some time back, not too long ago, Ken and John have known each other for many years, and John told Ken, hey, I've got some free time. We had talked some time ago if you ever wanted anything done. So Ken says, well, I've got an idea I've been working on. So what I'm going to show you is John Winfield's latest art. Hasn't been seen before. He did this for Ken. Ken grew up in Wilton, Connecticut. And like many of us, as kids, we went to the train station, watched trains come and go. If you look at the lower left, there's a bicycle. That was Ken's bicycle.
Oh, nice. That's
this
cool.
is John's making 100 prints. Ken has the original. This is number 2. They will be for sale. If you happen to be a New Haven fan or a John Winfield fan, I have no idea what it costs, but I'm sure if you go to John's website, he can show you. So I just wanted to show you John Winfield's latest painting. And this was done, and it says on the bottom, commissioned by Ken Fitzgerald. And it's a meet on the Danbury branch. Wilton was on the Danbury branch, which is one of the branches of the New Haven Railroad. It went from Stamford up to Danbury. From there, went up all the way to Pittsfield, Massachusetts. Anyway, so this is it. This is John Winfield's latest painting. Yes, sir.
You should also know that that particular locomotive is what they call an FL9, so it was capable of diesel propulsion and third rail pickup into New York.
And
that is Ken's email address, FL9, and that one of those locomotives is at the Fort Worth. Two of them.
Two of them will be right by.
Are at the GVRR.
Right. Which when I saw that, I completely freaked out.
But I've got pictures when they were delivered via Hodge Yard. I've got pictures of them still in, well, they had been going through multiple paint schemes. Metro North had them, Condot, Connecticut DOT had them, depending on the engine. But I've got them in the Metro, in the New Haven colors, the Guinness paint scheme, which is what you see here. I also have pictures of them in the current GVR. Yes, sir.
Bunch of actual locomotives?
Yes. Well, not necessarily this particular locomotive, but this class of locomotives.
They had some in Fort Worth.
Yeah, the GVRR.
Yeah.
Grapevine Vintage.
Yeah.
A couple of FL9s, that is true.
FL9s or whatever, I saw them and I thought, oh my God, what are they doing down here?
The New Haven bought 60 of them.
Been repainted in the G.
And the GVRR Grapevine Vintage painted them, and it's a pretty graphic paint scheme too. And obviously they don't longer run on third rail.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is Mr. Winfield's latest painting. So, this is a print, but I just wanted to show everybody what it is.
Cool. Thanks, Dave.
You are welcome.
Mr. Cowles, could you also mention what's going on with Mr. Winfield and his collection?
Yeah, and I was lucky, I got to see him while he was painting that one. We were at his house about a month ago, but John and Elaine in particular Elaine is not in terribly great health. She's okay, but she's not in great health. And John is 82, 83, something like that. He is a fabulous painter. I have 7 of his clay prints, plus one of the limited edition prints as well. But they're not able to do shows anymore. So they're not going to be at the train shows like they used to. You could walk up and see all the beautiful paintings and pick up a print there. If you want to get a print from him, go to Facebook and look up Winfield Railroad Art, and you can buy them from him that way. They give you a contact deal there. I just got a print of one of my favorite pictures of all time that he's got, which was 3 Hours to Amarillo, which shows a conductor, a brakeman, and an engineer comparing their watches, and they're standing in front of some 82-inch drivers on the 484. I mean, it just shows you how massive those trains actually are. That was one of my favorite pictures I've ever had. But I have most of his team weeks now. But anyway, if you're interested, check on Facebook. If you can't find it there, we'll get a hold of me. I can get in touch with you. So they're great people, but he is just such a talented railroad artist.
Thanks, Daryl.
Mike.
Yes.
Stay. Does our website have the ability? I could put up some pictures of these FL9s when they first got to Hodge Yard. Is there a place on our website to post them?
There's really not.
Okay.
There's really not. We'll take a look and try to figure out something. Okay. All right. Cole, you've got something for show and tell.
So I built a couple.
Speak louder so everybody back can hear you.
So I built a couple cars. This one was started out as what was supposed to be an easy, boring kit build. So it was a Silver Streak kit and snowballed. I ended up full interior. There's LED lights, wires in there's an orange LED in the stove, which makes it glow when it's got track power. Scratch built the table, the blue bonnets, everything on the table. Plates, there's aluminum foil for silverware on each side of the plates. Built pots, pans. There's even plumbing underneath the sink. So yeah, there's that one, and this one was a little tank build that is built on a Katy disconnect truck. So I molded and cast this tank from a kit that I had, and then scratch built a pump out of fluid, crimpy wire. And
What is it? So she can't see what it is.
really small. It's just a little fuel card.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So then it's got some tank castings, barrels, and hoses made out of solder.
All right, and these will be up here so you can see them during the break and after the meeting for a little bit. So, anybody else have anything for show and tell?
Can you come in on Zoom?
Yeah, we'll do that in just a minute. We'll have the camera moved over here so you can see it during the break, okay?
I think he wants to do one on Zoom.
Oh, do one on Zoom. Excuse me. David, can you give us I'm sorry, I misunderstood. And who's wanting to share?
Rusty Herman in Alpine, Texas.
Okay. Where are you? There you are, Rusty. Good. There you are. Okay. Cool. Tell us all about it, Rusty. Thank you.
What I'm trying to build there is a Bulldog, one of two that the Milwaukee built. This is N-Gauge. It's in the process of being worked on. The interior is not done yet. That you can see the motor trucks are there. The interior will be a metal piece that will be fit here. A friend of mine's going to have to, I'm not a machinist, is going to machine it for me. And I'll have the engine and the motor and the electronics will be in the middle and the extended drive shaft out both ends of the motor, and along with the electronics. It's a 3D printed shell. Just thought it, and I've got the Milwaukee decals coming for it. And so I'm hoping to have it running in another month or so. But I have a 23-foot by 13-foot N-Gauge operation here.
Cool.
Been working on it about 5 years. It
Great,
runs.
Rusty.
The Milwaukee runs from Great Falls to Missoula, Montana, and the Great Northern runs from Great Falls to Spokane, Washington, through the Glacier Park and climbs up to the second level.
All right. Rusty, thanks for joining us from Alpine. Guys, that's a Division 5 member.
Yes.
We're certainly glad you took advantage of logging in with us on Zoom, Rusty. That's exactly why we're here. Thank you so much.
I saw your invitation, so I thought I'd take you up on it.
Well, we're glad you did, and we hope you start making it a regular visit here on Saturdays, the second Saturday of every month.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. The last thing on show and tell comes with just a little bit of explanation. For years, ever since I started in this hobby back in high school, 15, 16 years old, the annual Model Railroad Craftsman or Model Railroader would come out, and you'd always see these absolutely stunning models of the award winners at national competition. And I would drool all over the pages looking at those models with the never ever dreaming that I could ever attain to be able to compete at that level. On a lark, I took a model to St. Louis, and just to see where I could fare with those outstanding modelers that would compete at that level, I entered it in the contest room at National. That's where the big boys play. And I talked to Dwayne a couple of times, and I said, well, I don't know, based on what's entered right now, I may have a shot at doing something. And about that time, the big boys started entering their models. And Miles Hales walked in. And I don't know if you guys recognize the name, but Miles he's been an outstanding modeler for a number of years. And I told Dwayne, well, it looks like I'm going to be riding the bench on this one. I'm going to be playing for crumbs now. And then under the category of never would I ever, the award ceremony came around. And I thought I thought I might have a chance of winning most popular train. But I carried a total train up there. And come that award comes and goes, and I didn't like the board, and I thought, well, I can go ahead and get up and leave now. And I thought, well, that's pretty rude. You know, just because you didn't win anything, you don't get up and leave. So I'm sitting on the front row, and all of a sudden, it comes to the structures awards. Now, National, they give away, they have one category for structures, either kit or scratch built, but it's one category regardless of online, offline, or bridges. It's all one category, and it's either kit or scratch built. And the guy comes up, and Bill Brown, who's the head of the contest room for National, starts making the awards, and he goes, and for second place in scratch built structures goes to Mike Mackey in the Phil Gas natural gas post-production platform. You could have pushed me over with a feather. I was absolutely stunned. So this is the model. I brought it up here for you guys if you're interested in looking at it. And then they have special awards. And I'm thinking, wow. And then all of a sudden he goes, the Hunter Line is an award that they pass out, that National passes out, sponsored by Hunter Line Products. If you're not familiar, Hunter Line makes scale lumber, but also does weathering mixes, stains. They do lumber also, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and bridge kits.
I knew they did bridge kits.
Yeah.
But I know they sell scale lumber.
And so, so anyway, the Hunter Line Award is given to the model that best depicts weathering in the contest room that's scratch built with scale lumber. And lo and behold, he calls out my name again for winning that for the Hunter Line Award. So both awards are here, the model's here, if anybody wants to take a look at it. Again, never would I ever have believed that I had the opportunity to compete on that level and let alone bring home something to hang on the wall from there. So anyway, thank you. All right, if nobody else has anything for right now, let's go ahead and take a quick break. It's 11:13. Let's take a 10-minute break, come back at 11:23, and we're going to have Steve do his presentation. Thank you, guys. All right, guys. I've got one other additional announcement that didn't get, we missed in our cycle. Jim, would you?
Okay, just wanted to tell y'all I'm in the Missouri Pacific Railroad Historical Society, and we're having our annual meet in Palestine the 7th, 8th, and 9th of October, and there is a train ride on the Texas State on Friday. And of course, the thing is, that's how when we have these different conventions, different states, that's usually we pick up our membership. But it's mopac.org, and you can actually get on there. There's still, you can still register for the convention. I don't know if you can get the same rate at the convention hotel, but we would be very happy to have y'all come and visit and see what it is we do. We have clinics and seminars. I was looking for Thomas Stevens to see what he was doing, but he doesn't seem to be here today. Because he was, but there'll be a number of different talks, and of course will be a ride on the Texas State. Friday afternoon, they're supposed to pull out the 610 and the 316 and let us kind of do a walkabout on it. They will not be operating, but you will be actually get up close and personal with them. So anyway, thank you all.
Thank you, Jim. Back in June, I had the opportunity to meet a man at the RPM meet who's got a very unique perspective on photography. recently moved from California to Texas. He actually lives over in Division 3, but the Division 1 meetings are a little closer for him, and we're fortunate for that. This gentleman, you've seen his work. If you've noticed any of the outstanding photo shoots of Rod Stewart's layout in California before he dismantled that layout and sent it back to the UK. But this gentleman had the opportunity to shoot that layout, and because of that, Sir Rod Stewart was so impressed, he asked him to come back and do some more stuff, and we'll find out about that in a few minutes. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce Steve Crise to today's, is it Chris or Crise? Crise. I knew I was going to missay it.
That's okay.
All right. So welcome, Steve Crise. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. Congratulations on your recovery.
Thank you.
That is absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
I cringe when I hear about things like that. I'm not good with needles and drugs and stuff, but that is truly amazing.
Thank you.
So today, as Mike mentioned, we're going to take a little journey, my journey that I took photographing this layout. So this show was originally produced for a group called the Center for Railroad Photography and Art. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're in basically in the Chicago area, and they promote art, railroad photography and painting as an art. And they've been around for about 20, 25 years. It was started by a man named John Gruber, who has since passed away, but he was a premier railroad photographer. You've probably seen his photo credit in a lot of Trains magazines and such. So that's how I got into railroad photography. It was through the pages of Trains, and eventually through Model Railroader, I became interested in model photography, model being model trains, although I did do some work in that other model category. And as soon as we get a graphic here, we'll start.
All right, here we go.
Right again, here we go. Starting to restart.
Okay, so the name of Mr., or I should say Sir Rod, he has been knighted by the Queen, who is recently deceased, as we all know. The name of his railroad is Three Rivers and Grand Street Railroad, which when I first heard about this project was a surprise to me, because Rod Stewart, we all know, being from England, I assumed I was going to go see something that was, British oriented in that respect, but no, it was not. So next, please. So how did this guy end up getting a lecture invitation about model train photography to a group that is known for their one-to-one scale photography? In other words, real railroads. Well, it all started next with this posting that came to me through Google, and there seems, whoop.
Hold on a second. The PowerPoint's not coming through the Zoom meeting. Give me a second here.
Okay. So to continue, I received that advertisement.
I see, Mike, I need to turn some screens off. This is the one that's completely through. Make it go away. Start. All right, we're good. We are back up and running. My apologies.
Good. Next slide. Next slide. There you go. Good. So anyway, when you open Google, you get all these ads. So I got this ad that after 26 years, the veteran rocker finally lets the world see his breathtaking model railway? Well, this was in November 13th of 2019. Next slide, please. No, the other next.
I know, it's.
There you go.
There it goes.
In one morning, it received 250,000 views. That's quite a bit. Being that it's a tabloid, I don't know if you've ever seen a tabloid and you're standing in the supermarket line and they have these outrageous headlines. This was one of them, and it makes it sound like nobody's ever seen this layout before. It's all brand new. It's never, the public has never laid their eyes on it. Well, next slide. This was the December 2007 cover. Next slide. So Model Railroader scooped the tabloids by 12 years. But unfortunately, we don't see Model Railroader into the grocery store, so you would never know that. So I thought that was kind of an interesting twist on how, especially the British tabloids operate and sell their headlines. Next, please. So a little bit about myself. This is me in 1962 with my American Flyer train set. Next slide, please. Things haven't progressed much for me in the modeling department. I still have my American Flyer train set. We haven't had the opportunity to set it up here in Texas, but this year, since we finished the remodeling on our living room, we'll be able to do that. So for the first time in a number of years, I'll be able to play with my trains again at home. Next, please. So a little bit background about how I ended up doing this train set shoot. Next, please. If you have ever oops. This is going to be a rough one, so bear with me. I'll continue on that slide. I've been published in a number of different magazines, both in the trade industry for railroads, Trains Magazine, and Model Railroad Craftsman, Model Railroader, as you saw, Railroads Illustrated, and Railroad and Railfan, which I'm most proud of the Railroad and Railfan cover of 2005. Here you go, right here, because it's the only magazine to ever feature a person on the cover rather than a train, and that person is Ted Benson. Ted Benson is another well-known train photographer who's had a lot of bylines in the magazines and published books, so on and so forth. So I'm most proud of that. And you can see a lot of my railroad photography does include people. So I try to incorporate people in to my railroad photography. Next, please. A couple of covers I've done for Trains Magazine. These two I was sent out on assignment specifically for these covers. This is something that they found online and purchased from me to illustrate their Amtrak at 40 article a few years ago. Next, please. Some of the work I've done professionally for real railroads, so the annual report for Union Pacific, the last public annual report for the BNSF Railway before they were absorbed by Warren Buffett's, what is his?
Berkshire Hathaway.
Thank you, Berkshire Hathaway. And these were both assignments. I was giving these 4 locomotives. They were my locomotives for 6 hours. We had track 2 in the Cajon Pass. I could put them anywhere I wanted to and photograph them. This was the concept that the art director came up with for the cover, and we finished that shot in about 30 minutes, so I had another 5.5 hours. So of course I'm going to take advantage of that. So we went up and down the track between Keene Brook basically and this summit at Cajon Pass, and did numerous photographs there. And at the end of my time, I thanked the crew and got off, and that was probably one of the highlights of my career as a professional photographer in railroads. This was a shot that the railway agent just purchased from me. I used to belong to a stock agency, but that business has kind of died out. Next. I still continue to do work for the BNSF Railway on a contingency basis. They'll call me up every now and then and send me out with a list of things that they want me to accomplish photographically. Next, please. So they send me all around the country. This is in Arizona, this is in Washington, and we rented a helicopter to do this shot. We don't, they're starting to use drones, of course, like everyone else, but this particular assignment required a helicopter for some of the work. Next, please. They send us out with, like I said, a specific shot list, and the railroad has departments in which they use these photos for. So this would have been containers and other, their sales department on containers. This would have, of course, been grain. Next, please. Also, a big part of my work is photographing the employees. This is very important to the railroad. They like to showcase certain people that have accomplished things in the railroad, and they have that on their in-house television network. Next, please. I love this shot. It was a fella in Argentine, Kansas, and he's going to put that turbocharger right there. And he did it in an exemplary amount of time, and he's so proud of what he does. And that's what I like to photograph, is how people are proud of what they do and their craft and how they accomplish their job on a daily basis. Next, please. In order for me to do this kind of work, I have to go through safety training. These are 2 of the ID badges that I have to apply for and renew every 2 years. So it's not a matter of I get a phone call, I go out and play trains. I have to be vetted and secured with the knowledge that I passed a test that I have to take online, and they issue me the credentials. Next. Part of what I had done, because I lived in Los Angeles, there was a lot of opportunity to do entertainment work. This is a big band known as the Esquires, and we borrowed the 3751 for an evening, and we did their CD cover. Next, please. This is the front cover of the back cover of the CD. Next, please. This is inside artwork. Next, please. So my portfolio in the scale model and toy train projects. This is kind of leading up to how I got the Rod Stewart job. Next, please. I started working for a magazine known as Fine Scale Railroad. It's not around anymore, but they tried to focus on the finer details of, and aspects of modeling. And it was an all scales magazine, which is kind of a risky thing to do because it's usually something HO oriented that people want to buy a magazine for a specific scale. So it was a bit of a risk. It lasted for about 6 or 7 years, but we did some amazing work.
It looks like it was PowerPoint is trying to update continuously, and that's kicking us out. Yeah, you go. There. Okay. So in the course of doing these covers for the magazine, we also did interior stories. The rumor got around that we had some magic layout somewhere, some unknown secret layout that we would go and do all these covers for. In reality, that was not the case. The case was we would build small dioramas for each specific cover, depending on what we wanted to do. So we could do sunset, we could do morning, and we could do snow. It didn't depend on any layout. We built it in the studio, and when we were done, it all disappeared and went away. So it really didn't exist. But we had fun with that. Next, please. Also, I had an opportunity to do things for Bachman Trains. This is their, of course, Thomas the Tank Engine. These were all done with a film camera, 4x5 studio camera.
And all the effects that you had to do were done in camera. There was no special effects for me at that time in the early 2000s and the late 90s. So the smoke and the motion and the snow and the twinkle lights, all that had to be done in camera. Next. Another example of what the box cover looked for, a shot I had to do for Bachman on a set they produced with their Christmas trolley. And it got resold as an image to Micro Mark catalog a number of years ago. Next, please. So I started doing some work with Model Railroader in 2004. This was my first cover for them. It was the 70th anniversary issue. And this was the La Mesa Club. I don't know if you've ever been to San Diego, California, where they have a gigantic layout where they have recreated the Tehachapi Loop area.
In Balboa Park?
Correct, in Balboa Park. The layout is in the basement of a building in Balboa Park. It is fantastic. I understand they've somewhat completed it now. They've been working on it for 30 years. And it's really something to see if you ever get out there. A couple of other covers. This was done with film. This is another film shot where you had to do the smoke effect with cotton that you would shake during the exposure. And this is done with a digital camera, which gave me the opportunity, and I'll talk about later, to carry focus from the front of the image all the way to the back. We'll get into that a little bit later. That was a very important technical discovery for myself in completing the Rod Stewart job. Next, please. I'm also involved in preservation and publishing. Next, please. If you would like to take this home with you, this is a website that I manage with friends of mine in Los Angeles. This is primarily about the Pacific Electric Railway, which is at one time the world's largest interurban system. I realize it's Los Angeles, I realize it's California, but you might, if you're a traction fan, you might find some interesting images in there. And it's also really a good resource if you want to see what America looked like in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. So it's not just about traction, it's not just about California, but it's a great resource. As we were talking earlier about signs, what streets looked like, how people dress, buildings, all sorts of things. Not just about close-ups of, roster shots of equipment. There's a lot of information on that site. Next, please. Again, publishing primarily the subject of attraction. We've done these monographs on old-time photographers and their photography. Next, please. And myself, with my partner, Michael Patras, we've done 3 books for Arcadia Publishing in their Then and Now series. My last one, just before I left Los Angeles, I was able to complete that book. I worked on this one for like 10 years, on and off, and finally I realized I'm moving. I better finish this puppy. So we got it done and it's out and available. Next. I also do teaching. I teach lighting classes at the Nevada Northern Railway. Next, please. And by that I mean we do a setup with live steam locomotives. In this case, it's a live steam crane, one of the few in the country that is still operational. And I teach you how to take pictures at night. We utilize studio strobes, so I can tell you 1, 2, 3, and you open your lens on bulb, and I hit the flash, and boom, the lights go off, and you leave your lens open for as long as you like, and make that capture, and you see it on the back of your camera. Now, I've done this for about 17 years now, started in 2006. And the people's expression when they see that on the back of their camera for the first time is like, wow, that's amazing. And they get how that is done. They understand that if the flash goes off, you drag the shutter, you get the headlights, and you make that image what's inside your camera. And that's really fascinating and very fulfilling to see people have that done for the first time on the back of their camera. Next, please. Another one of the setups that I got with one of their engineers, John Tyson, who is the engineer of Locomotive 40. John's been with the Nevada Northern Railway for quite a long time.
I'd be willing to bet that's one of your pictures.
Maybe. I could talk about that later. Next, please. My own personal work, I tend to emphasize people. So what I've done is set up a white background near the train station. And as the crews finish their I don't want to say turn, their time on the engine, the word escapes me right now. They get off and they're nice and dirty and filthy, and that's what I like to capture. Their dirty faces, how they look when they're actually working. Next, please. Sometimes I just like to do weird stuff. So this is the inside of a lantern. People can't figure out how I did it, but it's actually really simple. I also teach that practical photography along with the night photography at the Nevada Northern. Next, please. I try to say railroad without saying train. So that's kind of my goal right now. I don't need to see the whole train. I like to do what I call shots of railroading. So this was in the engine house at the Nevada Northern Railway. By the way, if you ever go to the Nevada Northern Railway, it's a very open space. Your ticket buys you complete access, unfettered, to the entire property. You can go in the engine house, you can go in the machine shop, you can go in the blacksmith shop, you can go anywhere on the property as long as you do it safely. Yes, sir, in the back.
And I would say that the Nevada Northern Railway is probably larger and more interesting than China.
Yes. Well, yeah, by the way, if you have any questions, go ahead and raise your hand in the middle of the presentation, and I'll try to get to you. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. But yeah, Chama is probably longer, but by sheer things to do at the Nevada Northern, which is like in the middle of nowhere, literally 250 miles from Las Vegas and 250 miles from Salt Lake City. So you fly into either of those two cities, you got to go to Ely. But it is a fantastic place. I've been going there for almost 20 years. I always see something new. So if it doesn't bore me, it is certainly not going to bore you. Next. And of course, they have the famous Dirt the Cat, the engine house cat. Nobody knows where he came from. They don't know how old he is. But he's there. And believe it or not, he's become a worldwide star. Every time they post something about him on the internet, people go crazy. They did a fundraiser for food. They made a ridiculous amount of money in donations for cat food. It was unbelievable. I don't even want to tell you how much, but it would probably pay your rent for 2 years. Wow. So for cat food. Next, please. So living in California, in Los Angeles, I was born and raised there. Next slide. These are some of the people that I worked with. I was a set photographer for Jeopardy for 15 years, Wheel of Fortune 9 years, and I worked on and off for Michael Jackson until he got into trouble and his entire staff was fired that morning, like it was our fault. But anyway, that's how Hollywood goes. You're in one day, you're out the next. So that's why I chose corporate photography, is because it's a different animal. I won't get into that, but it's a much safer environment to operate in because Hollywood is a very fickle place. Next, please. Some of the other celebrities that I've had, I'm sure you've never heard of the Sex Pistols, but I do lighting for different photographers. I had a studio, and lighting was one of the things that I did for other photographers. You'd be surprised how many photographers don't know how to light. And I would do that for them. They could rent my studio. I could set up everything for them. They come in and push the button and they get the credit. Next, please. So that brings us to how I got to here. So I got a call from Model Railroader in 2009. And they asked me, would I be interested in shooting Rod Stewart's Model Railroad? I said, well, yeah, sure. When do you want to do it? I said, well, that's the trick. We have to figure that out. Well, what do you mean? Can't you just pick a date and we go? But no, of course not. Rod Stewart being Rod Stewart, there's many levels of people you have to go through. So I had to deal with the house manager, I had to deal with the tour manager, I had to deal with the layout manager, and I had to deal with maybe the gardener. I'm not sure. But there were a lot of levels of people that I had to deal with in order to get to the space. Next slide, please. These are the collage of the 4 covers that I did over a period of about 8 years, I guess it was. Next, please. This is a schematic that was in Model Railroader of Rod's layout. And let me get back to the people, layers of people that you had to go through. Nobody could agree on a date because the equipment manager was busy here with Rod, the tour manager was busy. And at the time, Rod was doing daily evening shows in Las Vegas. So he'd fly back and forth between Los Angeles, Van Nuys Airport, and Las Vegas on his private plane. So there was a lot of this bouncing back and forth, and nobody could nail down a specific day. So finally, they chose a day for me to be there. But without telling me, they said I had from 8 o'clock in the morning, I found out this on the day I arrived, I had from 8 o'clock in the morning till noon. Noon? Well, his layout was on the 3rd floor of his house, and it's this little teeny one-man elevator that we had to get all the gear up this elevator. And to boot, the elevator was surrounded with mirrors. So you didn't feel claustrophobic, but we had to get all this gear in that elevator, basically made of glass and not break anything. So we had to tape furniture pads around the mirrors and get all the gear. So it took about 90 minutes just to get the gear up there. So that eats that time. Traditionally, it takes me at least an hour and a half to get all the lights, figure out what we're doing, get all the lights set up, and do our first shot. So that eats up. Well, now we're at 10 o'clock, and I've got till noon. So it was sweaty palms time. Got to perform. So I hadn't met Rod yet, and I just finished the first shot, and he comes in and he introduces himself to the crew. Very nice man, just a regular guy, no pretension about him. And he said, "Can I see the first shot?" I said, "Okay, sure. Let's go in and have a look." So we open the computer, and of course, the night before the shoot, what happens? My laptop dies. So I had to call a friend, and on the way to Rod Stewart's house, I picked up his laptop. He had a spare. So does it have Photoshop on it? Yes. Great. That was the extent of our conversation. So we go into this his workroom, and I set up the computer, and I've never opened this computer in my life. Open the computer, and the screensaver is 2 naked ladies with fully exposed chests. And of course, I said, "Well, this is not my computer." And he says, "Of course it's not." But he didn't mind. He didn't mind. So we get to the first shot, and I bring it up, and he's looking at it. He's looking at it, and he's looking at it very intently. I don't know what he's thinking. So finally, after about 5 minutes of looking at it, he says, "This is excellent. You can stay as long as you like." Oh, because I was told at noon I had to leave because nobody could be at the layout at the same time without Rod being there. So I got a pass immediately just based on the first photo. So, and by the way,
It wasn't based on the screensaver.
no, it was not. Well, it might have been. He didn't say. That's a very good point. I'll have to add that to my next lecture. So I don't know what it was exactly based on, but thank God he gave us permission to stay. And he had, at noon, we had to stop because he had made this fantastic lunch. He has a personal chef. He made this wonderful lunch. And at 1 o'clock, lunch ended, and Carl Swanson, who you might be familiar with, Byline and Model Railroader, went to the airport with Rod and got on his private plane, and they flew to Chicago. And during that flight, Carl interviewed Rod for the article. So we had the layout for the rest of the afternoon for ourselves. So proceed, next slide. So you saw that there were 4 different times we went to the layout, and we basically broke down the layout into 4 different areas so we can milk as much out of this as possible. Now, the interesting thing that Model Railroader made an exception for is that we were shooting a layout that had not yet been completed. That is rule number 1. If Model Railroader shows up at your house to shoot your layout or your club layout, it has to be complete. Well, of course, they want to make an exception because, of course, again, this is Rod Stewart. So they made that exception. So this was the first area we concentrated on. Next slide. That was the cover that you'll probably see most of the time when the tabloids produce never before seen story on Google or Facebook or whatever. Next slide. We concentrated in this area, the horseshoe curve area that Rod produced on his layout. It is not an exact replication, but it gives homage, if you will, to the horseshoe curve. Next slide, please. And we concentrated on the dock area. And by the way, while we're doing this, everybody's busy working on these next areas that we had to shoot. But there was about a 2-year span between us coming back. So next slide, please. This is the last shot that we did in the coal and steel area of the layout. So next slide. Starting with our first adventure at the layout. When I go to somebody's house and I'm lighting a layout, this is my light right here. I call this my sun, S-U-N, not S-O-N, sun. This is what I use as what we call in the industry your key light. That is your brightest light on the set, and you work around everything else to fill in the shadow area. Not necessarily using lights. Sometimes I'll use a reflector card like this, and this is all homemade, made out of cardboard and tinfoil that you have in your house. I try to make as much stuff as I can because photo stuff is stupidly expensive and it breaks. And you can do it yourself for, I don't know, 10 cents. So we try to make as many things as possible to scale down to what we're doing. So this is my light. These are, I like to say this, these are called barn doors. So, and they can trim the light, they can cut it down to a small, and this light also does something that's called spot and flood. So you can spot just an area or you can flood the area with light. And these are generally kind of old school lights. They don't use these much anymore because they make a tremendous amount of heat. But they have a unique feature by which the filament is, well, it's a filament and it's very small and it makes a very sharp kind of light. And the reason I like that is because it imitates the sun. So I try to, at every turn, try to imitate the sun. And I don't put the light behind me. I'll put it over there if my subject is here and my camera's here, and I'll what they call backlight it. So I'm there at sunset and it's dramatic. And I get a lot of criticism I got a big criticism for the art director at Model Railroader, who she complained that I make all my shots look sunrise or sunset. Can't he do anything else? I said, yes, I can, but you'll have to go to the layout ahead of me and raise the ceiling. Because if you look at your layout here, I have a very limited ability to raise my light high. So that's why my shots look that way, because it's low sun. I can't really do this. The one exception would have been the La Mesa Club. They had an endless ceiling, which I could do all kinds of things. But that's most of the reason that drove me to this style of photography, is because the room had a limitation to it where I could put my lights. Also, since these things get very hot, I have to be very careful where I put them. I could burn your ceiling. Yes, sir.
What temperature is that?
The color temperature, he's asking what temperature is the light. I assume color temperature. Okay. Color temperature is 3200 K, which is what television motion picture pretty much used to be. Now, everybody switched over to LEDs. The reason I don't switch over to LEDs is because they generally are a panel light, which is a soft light. I can't do this effect with LEDs, although they're starting to make them so you can, plus they're really expensive. They're cooler, they're easier to work with, but they're really expensive. This I could pick up for next to nothing because everybody's getting rid of them. So I'm cheap. Next. So this is what the shot looks like without all this stuff. You can see, basically the cover is a square. So model railroader only uses about this much. So they leave all this juicy stuff out down here. And if you were closer, you would see a clothesline, a toolbox, junk, a woman with a little baby holding onto her apron. This is what Rod does. This is what he does best. He doesn't do the bench work. He doesn't do the track. He doesn't paint the locomotives. He does the buildings and I would say populate the set. That is his forte. And unfortunately, I never got to shoot this event, but I think we've all heard stories about Rod in his crazy days, right? Well, he has a completely different personality now. When he goes on tour, in fact, when he was in Las Vegas doing his shuttle show, as he called it, he had a specific room at the hotel that was dedicated to nothing but his model building. He has travel cases that go with his equipment, gear, if you will, for the show, that travel back and forth all around the country, as a matter of fact. And when they set up, let's say in Chicago, they'll be setting up the lights and the instruments at the venue. Meanwhile, back at the hotel, they've given him a special suite where you can go back after the show or before the show. No more fooling around. He goes to his suite and he builds his buildings. And he comes with a tracing of the layout, the footprint, if you will, of the building, and he will build that building on his portable workbench and have it shipped back and placed on the layout. So that's how he was able to do a lot of this work and also still travel on the road. It's pretty amazing. I didn't get to shoot that. I wanted to go to one of the shows, show him in a suite doing his thing, but it just never, it's hard enough getting here. So imagine what it would like to do that. Next, please. So as I was saying before, this is the area that we concentrated on. This is the area that was to be the steel and coal mine area here. And thankfully, it wasn't finished because it gave me an opportunity to put a light here and light back this area. Otherwise, had it been finished, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So I tried to take advantage of some of the things that were available to me. Again, making lemonade out of lemons, if you will. But this eventually changed a bit from what we'll see later. But that was the situation we were dealing with at the time. Next, please. So now we're getting into the detail of the layout, and I can't express enough every time I went to the layout, I would see something I'd never seen before. Was that there last time? Yeah, you just didn't see it. So there's that much detail going on in the layout. Every window is set at a different, the blinds are set differently, open differently. There might be somebody leaning, or you can see inside the building or somebody getting dressed. Rod has a lot of fun with that kind of stuff. Next, please. Another scene, I forget. Oh yeah, this is from 2006. Oh gee, I didn't get that dust out of it. Again, I backlight the situation, so it gives it a feeling of reality. I also use what they call theater gels that you put in front of your lights. Now this is a gel that's primarily used to warm the light. So that's what I put on my son. If I'm doing something that I want to show the shade area here to kind of boost it the other way, I'll put a cool gel on it. And you guys can use this for your your layout. If you transition from dark to light and you don't have the ability to color, you can certainly use these things. They're available online. If you want to know more about it, I can tell you. But I use these profusely in doing this kind of work. And it's a little, well, I use the term horsey to describe something kind of beyond the pall, but it gives that effect. You can't miss the fact that there's a different color temperature going on. Next, please. Again, detail. And we were talking earlier about, shrinking things down. All of the tabloids and newspapers. This is at his train station at Three Rivers Station. And the detail just keeps on going. I don't expect you guys to rent a suite at your hotel when you're at a convention to do.
And have somebody set it up for you.
Exactly. But this is an extreme example of somebody who, by the way, he worked on this layout for 20 years plus. I'll get to an interesting story about his first layout. This was not his first layout. But like I said, we were talking about magazines and how to populate your scene. Next, please. Again, we're looking down onto a Main Street scene, and you see a church wedding scene going on here. And next slide, please. This is Rod and Penny. They're getting married. So, and that was Penny Lancaster, his wife. That was her contribution to the layout. So she did the people and the placement and so on and so forth. And so it's not a family affair, but he tries to bring the kids into it. And of course, as they get older, they kind of, I don't want to look at Daddy's train set. No, they get out of it. Anyway, next. Rod is a big soccer fan. They call it football, of course, in England. His favorite team is the Celtic soccer team. We'll get into that a little bit later. But again, I wanted to illustrate the profuse usage of signage everywhere. It really makes the layout. He puts garbage in the gutter, just stuff everywhere. Next, please. There's a close-up. You could see what I was talking about a little bit better with the trash pile and the lady with the baby. And next door has a greenhouse with their own victory garden, and so on and so forth throughout the entire scene here. And it's almost like the trains become secondary. There's so much to see. So it is a model railroad, but it also captures a time period in history, which I think is the goal of what we're all trying to emulate. We capture a point in history. He just happens to do it way down in a spectrum that not too many people get to. And he happens to be a rock star. So next, please. Sometimes you'll use structures that are somewhat English in nature. He somehow twists and molds them into something that looks American. And I think if he had to choose a railroad to do that with, I think the Pennsy and New York Central, which is what he modeled, transition era, is probably a good candidate for that. Next. This is an array of some of the lights that I use. This, of course, this is my son right there. And I'll use these for different effects. They all do the same thing, small to large, and just for a general light. And again, these are all going by the wayside, so they're on eBay. They're on, if you really want to get into this, you can pick up bargains all over the place. Next, please. So we move on to our next issue, and this was done at the horseshoe curve, the second area of the layout that was finished. Next, please. That's what it looks like without all the stuff, all the blurb and the model railroader and all this stuff. Now, interestingly enough, this is a horizontal format. The other one was a vertical, but it doesn't matter. They still just use a square shape, and they run the banner across the top. Now, in this particular adventure, we brought into something new that had hit the market, and that was called Helicon Focus. And Helicon Focus is a program. I don't have anything to do with this company. I don't own any stock or interest in it whatsoever. Next slide, please. Oh, and that was the cover. Next slide, please. So here it is. What this does, in the beginning, I bought the first version of this. And what focus stacking is I think you're familiar. There's probably some model railroad photographers in there. Okay. Did I speak to you on the phone?
No.
Oh, okay.
Why?
Why? Oh, okay.
I bought the first version of that also.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, lifetime version for $69.
Right, me too, but it went away.
It only came online, you couldn't get it.
Right. That's right, exactly. Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. What this enabled me to do is if I was taking a picture of this pencil, or better yet, that model there, you get down low, you want to make it look real, you want to be looking up at it. No matter how far down you crank your f-stop, you are not going to carry focus from the front all the way to the back. It's always been a problem of physics that cameras can't overcome. The 4x5 view camera, you could to a degree, and I used that for a while, but it was a difficult experience because the camera is so big and the scene is so small, you were limited as to where you could put the camera. So, fourth comes Helicon Focus. And what that does is I can focus on the tip of this pencil, take a picture, and then change the focus to here, 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 take a whole bunch of exposure, and then run it through the software, and it magically blends it into one sharp image of a pencil. That's pretty cool. So in the beginning, we were using that. Next slide, please. Here's a great example. We've all seen these before. So if I were using a camera, by the time I would get to a film camera, I should say, or a digital for that matter, without the assist of Helicon Focus, I wouldn't be able to get this sharp and this sharp. There would have to be a compromise somewhere. Next, please. For example, bring it into the realm of something we like to look at. This is Helicon without the use of that. And you can see in the background it's starting to fall off. This is not sharp. The sharpness really starts to lose it about here. And this is at f32 on a 35 millimeter camera. As you know, that's like almost pinhole photography. But with the Helicon, you can get the tip of the streetcar all the way back to this print on the wall. Next, please. Same thing with HO scale. I can get the tip of this locomotive all the way back to here, completely in focus by the use of focus stacking. And now they have another version by which, if your camera is capable and you can hook your camera to live view and view it on your computer, you can choose a point on your screen, let's say here. That would be your A point, and you can choose a B point. And the software will calculate how many exposures, how many focus points you need, and it will do the camera itself. So you set it up, go have a cup of coffee, come back, and 10, 15 minutes later, you have a completely rendered photo. Now, there are some things you have to go back inside. Sometimes there's something called webbing, and you'll see things you have to correct. But isn't it an amazing thing? And it's used primarily, there are a lot of entomologists, people who shoot pictures of bugs and flowers and medical photography. That's primarily what it was developed for, but of course it has a great lifespan in the hobby. Next, please. So we started using that software for the layout. Why are you laughing?
Because that's just so flippin' amazing.
Well, it is. And the sad part is that even though it's almost overwhelming because there's so much to see, it's almost too much. It's almost too much. It's almost too sharp. So for it to appear in a magazine.
It's like George Salios' layout.
Yeah.
You're stunned by how much.
Right. Yeah. It's overwhelming. So one visit doesn't really pay it.
But what struck me on this, from the corner down here where the ballast is on the track, all the way to the very back in the back. It's the same focal. It's razor sharp from top to bottom, corner to corner.
And it's a bit of a trick to do this sometimes because even with that wonderful focus stacking program, because we were on the 3rd floor of the building, any vibration, everything's out of register. So we'd be in the middle of our 15th exposure, and then the air conditioning would kick on. And of course, it's roof mounted, and the whole building goes like this. So, got to start over. So we'd have to shoot a blank frame so we know where to start again and run it through the software. So there are complications on this floor. You wouldn't have an issue, but if you kick the tripod or sneeze, you'd have to start over. Next, please. So having this new software, we went back and did some scenes that we'd done before just because of the ability to show it even sharper. Next, please. Again, we drilled down hard into the Main Street area. Now you can really start seeing a woman taking a picture, a construction area, newspaper garbage, people walking across the street, signage, hot dog stand. I mean, it's just endless. Next, please. So he likes to have fun with signs. So this is Hokum and Pokum of Hoboken. That's his way of having fun. Next, please. A river scene with this wonderful drawbridge. I don't think it's functional, but it sure looks good. And I like this water effect of the speedboat going down the water. Next, please. And again, there's just tons of things, these little scenarios, if you will, that he has created on the layout.
Slices of life.
Exactly. Slices of life, woman hanging out her clothing. Next, a view of the horseshoe curve. Next, please. And one of the things that we did for this layout was he had a set of these lights. These are incandescent ceiling fixtures. They all had, these tungsten bulbs in them. No matter how much you ran the air conditioning, when you had these lights on, you had this heat wave coming from the ceiling, very hot. So his house manager came up with this idea: why don't we switch over to LED? And they did. And at the time, these bulbs were not cheap. They were $30, $40 a piece, something like that. Of course, they've gone way down in price, but he did 260 fixtures with these new lights. Just one problem. They produced this ugly blue light. Everybody says, oh, that's a daylight. Oh, yeah, that's a daylight balance bulb. 55K is what everybody like. Oh, this is a 55K bulb. You're going to love it. No. When you go outside, if you were to take a color temperature meter reading, it is not 55K. It might be in the North Pole, but it ain't going to be here. You're usually in the spectrum of about 48, maybe 50, but as the sun goes down, it goes way warm. So Rod, oddly enough, is colorblind. I don't know if anybody knew that. So he does all this work without the benefit of knowing what color it is. So he already has an impediment to his railroading that he had to get through. Next slide, please. So replace all of it with LED. Next slide, please. So this is what the actual piece looked like. Now the problem is it did not come with this thing. I had to design and fabricate this so that I could stick a gel in it so it would wash his layout in a much more friendly, warmer, compassionate light, if you will. And when I finished it and he walked in, even though he's colorblind, the difference, oh, this is amazing. How did you do that? I said, well, I used this. I said, well, can you do that for all my lights? So that's how I got this job, is making that. So next slide, please. That's what it looks in practical. And this is I call it my Rod prototype. And I kept this. And I have it in my office as a memento. So next slide, please. Again, here we are, October 21st, 2010. This is a screen grab. That's why it's such a bad shot. But same thing happens again. He goes on the Jimmy Kimmel show. What does he talk about? He talks about his train layout. Next slide, please. There's a close-up of the cover. Next slide, please. There's the cover. So again, my phone lights up. Oh, we'd like to buy some of those pictures. Oh, we like that. Yeah. All around the world, Australia, everywhere. The problem is when I worked, and it's not a problem, but it's a very smart move on Rod's part. He's a very good businessman, or he wouldn't be where he is today. I made an agreement with him that I would not sell any photos without his permission. And that's a very wise thing to do because it controls the image. And I don't blame him for doing that. The one thing that does bother me about this sort of publicity is folks like Mr. Kimmel. They always make fun of model railroaders. We're geeks. It's really a detriment to the hobby. And we were hoping that at some point, Rod would become somewhat of a spokesman for the hobby, which he has done quite a bit in England. But for some reason or other, in his time being here, he didn't do any of that. It was really kind of disappointing. Other than this, being in this magazine, which was actually it was his dream to be in Model Railroad, he hasn't done lick for the American modeling. Tons of stuff. In fact, there was a layout in England that was destroyed by vandals, and he donated $10,000 or 10,000 pounds to the rebuilding, and he had other people donate. So he did a very charitable thing. He was on a show in England where they go around and they choose the best layout, and he will come and present the award to the layout club or the layout owner. I thought, gee, that's really wonderful. They don't do it here. We need something like that. I don't know how you talk somebody into doing that.
We'll talk.
No, I'm serious. It's too late now. He's gone.
Well,
next slide, please.
They do make airplanes.
Oh, that's true. So moving on to our third shoot, and I'm going to go through this because it's getting a little long. We needed to come up with a concept because the first concept for the cover is you're just there. You're seeing it. The next one was the changing of the light. So this we had, what are we going to do for this? So next slide, please. So I brought some books to Rod's house, and I utilized the art of Leslie Reagan, who you can see here, who was an artist for the New York Central Railroad. And I tried to get a lot of my ideas from the art world, especially the world of railroad artists who came before us. Leslie Reagan being one of them, Grip Cheller, which we'll see in a minute. Of course, John Winfield, it comes from that legacy. Next, please. So in order to come up with this concept, and we were using this Hudson, we utilized a cooler color palette rather than the warmer, because I think of Pennsylvania, I think of fall and the brown and the warm. New York Central is gray. It has kind of like a coolness about it, the stainless steel. Next, please. So, we're borrowing the color palette, if you will, from Leslie Reagan. Next, please. That was how these all three work together. And again, we're just using, you can see how this time they did the banner was, they went to a new format, and they made the blue ghost back a little bit so you can see the entire layout, which I thought was a great idea. Next, please. And this is me doing that shot. My assistant, Yolanda, who had gone through all these escapades with me, had snapped this picture to prove that I was actually there. Because you're actually not supposed to do this. We were doing an interview. Well, I'll tell you about that later. Anyway, go ahead. Next slide. Again, another profusely. I mean, it almost gets to the point your eye gets tired of looking. I don't know how he keeps it up, but he does. Again, detail. It's just not, no matter how far away it is, it's profusely detailed. Now, fortunately, some of these buildings back here, you can't really read the titles, and we'll get to that in a second. Next slide, please. His Liberty ship scene, and this is right at the edge of the layout. He has plastic guards on, so you take the plastic guards down the street. Next, please. Of course, we took the plastic guards down to shoot this, we do that. Nice scene. And again, when we're shooting these pictures, with the 4x5, you look up at a building and you see it keystoning, what they call it. So you see these buildings have all been done like this. So it looks like what you would see with your eye. And again, that's a step after we've rendered the photos. We run it through Photoshop again and we straighten it out. Next, please. So now we're getting into the kind of the nasty part of the layout. In that other shot I showed you, and I pointed out these buildings. Rod, like I said, he likes to have fun with signage. So next shot, please. So we have Mallory vibrators. Not exactly something for family consumption. Then we have Pussycat knob. I don't know if you know what a knob is in England. Okay, we'll leave it there. Okay. And we never close. Private booths, all kinds of. So this is the debauchery part of town, which he enjoyed a lot. And he has friends, his companions, his compatriots, if you will. He will name buildings after them on his layout. And that's one of the ways that he has fun with signage.
So which friend is named Mallory?
Excuse me?
Which friend is named Mallory?
I didn't meet Mallory. Didn't really want to. But if I did, it'd probably be okay. But again, I mean, this is way back. This is probably the edge of the layout, and that's probably here. But it doesn't matter. It's still just got this gobs of information for you to look at. Next, please. Like we needed a close-up. Okay. Next, yeah. Another just intensely. I could have gone back and did 6 or 7 articles just on this, but the public only has patience for enough. So. But there's a photo. Some of these are unpublished, we could have done another 6 or 7 other articles on it, but for some reason or other, Model Railroad only does 10 images. They only require me to shoot 10 images, of which they might use 6 or 7. And they only dedicate 10 pages to the feature article. And I thought, well, why don't you do more? Why don't you have your circulation bump up? I mean, you could have sold this to every Rod Stewart fan 3 times over. And apparently there's some break-even point with publishing where if you start to print too many, you start to lose money. Now, nobody's explained that to me with numbers. Maybe somebody here is an accountant with a publisher. They'd explain it, but I never figured it out. I thought they could sell 1 million copies of this and do pretty well, but they don't print any more of these than they do anything else. Next, please. Just another, this was actually a model that a friend of his made for Rod, who got caught up in the hobby. He was a roadie. Roadie is a person that does the musical instruments and the setup on stage, and his roadie made this for him and has since passed away. And this was his dedication, dedication to that roadie by putting that building on his layout. And again, it's an excellent model. Next, please. Another unpublished scene of the refinery, and I was talking to my wife last night about why I really like this photo, and I couldn't quite figure it out. And like this part of it, anybody familiar with the painter Edward Hopper? Ever hear that name? Well, this to me looks like an Edward Hopper painting. So again, I'm borrowing from the art world to bring it in to model photography. Next, please. Yeah. Oh, there it is. Okay. Sorry. So again, he likes to have fun with signs. Everybody see The Godfather? Family owned. Of course it is. Maybe this woman is screaming for help. I don't know. Next. So I come to this slide to talk about, let's see, go to the next slide. I forgot, I lost my, yes, again. So I got contacted, I've been contacted by this German version of model railroad. I don't know if you ever heard of it. They've for years have been trying to publish the Rod Stewart story in their German magazine. And I mean, at least 5 or 6 years, it took them to get permission to run the story. So this just came out. And again, it's like, whoa, nobody's ever seen this. This is brand new, you know. Of course, it's garbage. But at the same time, they bought a picture from me for the cover because they did an edition on U.S. railroads. And U.S. railroads are huge in Europe. I don't know if you know that, but a lot of people model U.S. railroads. I guess because of the variety, I don't know. But that's something brand new. Again, the story just keeps recycling over and over again, and everybody presents it as being brand new, never seen before. Next. Last and final adventure at Rod's. And this, excuse me?
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
What is your motivation or what is your thought for nearly all of your pictures being so warm? They're not natural, they're not the color that they really are.
Well,
they
that
all have a yellowish red.
right. That is a stylistic choice. And I do that primarily because my pictures don't look like anyone else's. And I've had people say that to me. I can tell your picture without even looking at the byline. Some people like it, some people don't like it, but that's the way it is with anything. I might not like your shirt, but you're going to wear it anyway.
You made me buy it.
Well, then it's your fault.
I get blamed for everything.
Well, we know which way it rolls, I guess.
That's it.
At any rate, yeah, that's a very good question, and it is a stylistic choice. And you know, in doing this kind of work, you're selling an idea is really what you're doing. Anybody can go into a layout with 2 umbrellas, maybe 3, and bang, 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 bang. They're done in 30 minutes. This takes me 8 to 10 hours a day. Sometimes I have to come back and revisit and do some more. So I made a choice that I wanted to do something different. And I brought into this world of model railroading ideas from the industry that are not used primarily and are not ever talked about in any model railroad article. So they keep begging me to write a story about this. Maybe someday, but that's a very good question. It's simply a choice, a stylistic choice. Like, would you buy a Ford or would you buy a Chevy? Or would you buy a Dodge? Well, I don't like the way the Dodge looks. I'm going to buy the Ford. That's your answer. Next, please. So again, we borrow from the world of art and going back to the Pennsylvania Railroad for this. Great book called Crossroads of Commerce. And Griff Teller was the artist for the Pennsylvania Railroad with a lot of, well, he did their calendars for many, many years, started out the greeting card business and worked for the Pennsylvania for like 30 years. Next, please. He was a counterpart to this gentleman here, Howard Fogg. This is a Howard Fogg painting.
Yeah.
That somehow got turned into black and white. But Howard Fogg worked for Alco. That is a tinted, no, that's a tinted photograph. Okay. Yeah, I tried to research these. This one I found. That is a Howard Fogg photograph, painting that had been turned. Howard Fogg worked for Alco. He would do, if you were the Rock Island, you bought FAs, he would do a publicity, the Alco would give you his painting as a tribute for I don't know, thousands and thousands of dollars purchase of diesel.
Then also using the day after railway.
Excuse me?
Then also use the artwork of the Alco of the day after railway.
Yes, yeah, he did a lot. Howard Fogg was prolific. Anyway, so next slide, please. So we utilized, some of these scenes look like they're right off of Rod's layout. Anyway, next. Another artist from that era, Alexander Leidencross, simply titled Power. Next, please. I love this stuff, so I gotta share it with you. For the D. Cornwell, another artist from the World War II era. This, I'm sure we've all seen this. It's very famous. Next, please. And so that's again this was actually shot as a vertical in anticipation of it being used on the cover, and they did the faded out blue to their credit to show a little bit more layout. Next, please. And you can see the stacks, the coloration, so on and so forth. Now, we did originally shoot Pennsylvania locomotive in here. And one of the rules that Model Railroader has, think about this, if you ever get your layout shot, is they don't like black engines on the cover. They like diesel, they like color, because color attracts you to buying the magazine. So when you think about that, next time you see a cover, what's on the cover? Is it going to be a black locomotive? Probably not. So if you ever get that opportunity, use color. Next, please. Again, another profusely detailed area. We saw this earlier as being nothing but a shell. It was just 2x4s and plywood. Nothing had been developed by that time. Next, please. Another small area on the layout, a waterfront scene that goes way back into the layout. And again, no area is left undetailed. Next, please. A center spread that we went back to our, I think that's an E unit. It's like an E3 or 4 or something like that. Went back to the Pennsylvania for this one. And Celtic Coal, another named after. Next slide, please. There you go. Harkening the grip teller painting of Pennsylvania Railroad. Next, please. And again, Rod also pays tribute to his friends and family with figures. So next slide, please. This is Honest Al, the scrap metal dealer, who he actually worked for sometime. Al, the person who was a scrap dealer that he worked for as a young man. You know, he started out life as a grave digger. I don't know if you know that or not, but so he elevated himself quite the way up the ladder. Next, please. This is Al, the ticket tout. Now, a ticket tout in England is a ticket scalper. So they have different words for different things. Did you buy from, did you buy a ticket from him? Is that why you're shaking your head? Well, somehow or another, he knew these two gentlemen, and this is his tribute to those two figures on his layout, which is kind of a neat thing to do because it gives your layout another dimension. Oh, that's my aunt right there. That's my brother and his kid. You know, it's kind of a neat idea. Next, please.
Does he carve those figures himself?
Excuse me?
Does he carve some of those figures himself?
Did he carve the figures himself?
I think so. Yeah, I don't know where you're going to find a guy looking like that, but I do believe he does some sculpting in that. He certainly does the painting of the figure. He comes up with all these things. You know, the other thing I just thought about, you kind of made me think about this, is a lot of times, you know, in the entertainment industry, they'll sketch out what the scene in a play or a film
storyboard
was. Exactly. And I don't know if he does that. If it just comes out of his head, or he kind of does a cursive sketch of what it. I should ask him. Next slide, please. So this is his the logo of his football club. And when he's not singing or taking care of the kids or doing model railroad, he's at the soccer stadium. He used to go down to Redondo Beach in California and play soccer on the sand. So he was just a regular guy, you know, no bodyguards, none of that stuff. Next, please. So what's next for the layout? Well, you kind of gave it away.
Sorry.
We all know now that his layout was disassembled. Next slide, please. But before it was disassembled, he asked us to shoot a video of his layout, which included interviews of him and Penny, his kids, a couple of his friends, talking about his experiences as a railroader, and we shot, of course, pictures of the layout, operational, pictures of Rod at the layout, so on and so forth. Next, please. So he's watching a playback of something. And he's genuinely a nice guy to work with. He's very amicable, and he doesn't really operate the trains himself. He has a layout manager that runs the layout for him. And again, his thing is buildings and scenery and people, and obviously the detail that we see. Next, please. Next, please. So again, this just came out, and it says Rod Stewart chartered 7 shipping containers to bring his model train set back home to Britain. 2 mistakes here. First of all, it was never in Britain, so it can't go home. It's going to a new home, but it ain't going home. 7 shipping containers? That was for the entire house. That I can understand. There was another article that said he did 12. It's like, oh, no way. Anyway, next slide. Then, of course, here's somebody that talks about he spent $80,000 to ship the layout, and his residence in Malibu. Well, he never lived in Malibu. So again, tabloids take an extreme, they don't do the research, or they do it on purpose. Who knows? But just keep that in mind when you're standing in line at the grocery store and you're reading something about, Rod Stewart's new pink hairdo. Next, please. So with that thought in mind, it was time to pick up the layout and start moving it, which Rod worked on quite a bit himself. Next slide, please. There he is. First building to leave the layout. Next slide. So thanks for stopping by. And next slide. Time for question.
I got one.
Yes, sir.
What was the total size of the layout in California?
Oh, well, I'd have to go. Oh, off the top of my, well, it's an odd thing to calculate, because he had the display part of the layout that was, I would say probably 50 feet by maybe 15. It was kind of a very long rectangle. But the other half was a staging area, which made it, just as long as the actual layout. So it's hard to calculate, because it'd be like counting your shelf storage area as part of the layout. It is, but it was never scenic or nothing done with it. Anything else? Yes, sir. Yeah, in the beginning, not very well. But he got a new layout manager, and he did a lot of work on the wiring and the track. And in the end, it was fantastic, a vast improvement over what it was. And I have to say, editorially speaking, if there was a weak point in the layout, it was the track. Yes, sir.
Was the layout, was it still DC, or did it go to DCC?
It was DCC. Yes, it was. I think it started out life as just DC, and that was kind of part of the problem. And there was a crossover in, I don't know if you saw it here, but that was not the best crossover you could have purchased. So, but it was so deep inside the layout, it would have been, a surgical nightmare to get that, out of there. So they just left it. Maybe they knew that this was going to get moved. Yes, sir.
He kind of fixed his ideas of what the track would be, and then have the shoulder track.
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of hiring going on here for people to come up with the basic concept of the layout, and he will approve it. He'll say, I like that, but I don't like that. Or can you change it? I want more of this. I want less of that. His layout is not, if you pardon the expression, a bowl of spaghetti. It's not, it's the best way I could describe it. It's a place to put his buildings. Yeah. And it happens to have trains running.
So he likes being in set design.
Pretty much. That's a very apt description. Set designer, in case you didn't hear what he said. So yes, I would, or architect. Yes, sir.
And did he did he say, I'd like you to shoot this part, or, I've just done this, and I this, and how much did he ask to shoot scenes?
That's a really good question. Well, in the beginning, our first adventure, I'm there with a writer called Swanson, and he and I, we what they call block out the shots. In other words, we'll go around the layout and we'll, do this. Oh, I think that would be good. Over here would be good. Maybe a down low, And then Rod comes in, no, we're going to do, he erases all of that and we do what he wants. But it was clear that after the first shoot, we knew what we were doing. So he pretty much just turned us loose. Oh, you're here today. Yeah, that's great. Oh, I got to run some errands. I'll see you later. And we were left all alone, which was a problem because you can't get out of where he lived. It was a gated community. To order a pizza took an act of Congress. So we had to bring our lunches. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Yeah, you said you use Helicon for your depth. And are you still using Helicon remote?
The question is,
are you using like Photoshop stack?
He's asking what program I use now, Helicon or Photoshop. I don't have Helicon anymore. The license expired and I didn't renew it because I haven't shot a layout in about 3 years. I was moving, selling a house and remodeling a house. So that didn't leave a lot of time for photography. So I've let the license expire. I don't know anything about photo stacking in Photoshop, just to make that disclosure. Yes, sir.
Actually, two-part question for the Rod Stewart's layout. Were the backdrops painted or were they photo backdrops?
They were painted.
They were painted?
Yeah, in full disclosure, they had air conditioning vents in most horrible places. We took that out as a courtesy to him.
And then secondly, for you as a photographer at your level, when it comes to photographing layouts and the backdrops, when you've got backdrops that are painted versus backdrops that may be photo, and some of those photos may be more glossy than that.
That's a trick.
How do you approach that challenge as a photographer?
Lighting is, fortunately, the type of lighting I use is kind of angular. You don't have that issue. But if you do something where you have a light like this at a perpendicular, you're going to see a big highlight. But because of the way I do things, that eliminates that problem. There are other ways to deal with that. Depending on how much time I have and how much Model Railroader wants to pay me, I will Photoshop some of the backdrops. So, like if the seam doesn't meet correctly, I'll line it up. But generally, it goes to Kalmbach and they do what they do with it. And sometimes they'll even take out some of the warmth that I have shot it and they'll bring it into a cooler spectrum for their style guide. So there's that to deal with. You're welcome. Thank you. Anything else? We're done? All right. Thank you.
Guys, thanks, Steve. This was far more than I could have ever expected. I hope you guys agree as well. I know that this is probably just the tip of the iceberg, and that maybe if you guys are interested and Cole is willing, we could invite you back next year sometime to talk about something else.
Sure.
Because I'm sure you've got plenty in your hip pocket.
More than you can imagine.
I bet. And Yoko, thank you for your understanding and your patience with all of the stuff that we've shared today and sitting through it, because we certainly do appreciate your patience as well. Guys and ladies, it is 12:50. We normally try to wrap up by 1 o'clock. I know there are a couple of folks that have some models that want to be reviewed. So we're going to take, and I'm going to turn it over and let Dwayne handle some of that. I'm going to probably excuse myself because I don't know if anybody picked up on it, but I had to slip a pain pill here a little while ago. So thank you. Look forward to seeing you next month. And everybody help sign up with Russell. Russell, wave your hand. Where are you? In the back. And he's got his sign up sheet right here on the front page, on the front desk. Come, volunteer for Plano. We need you. Thank you. Have safe travels. Thanks, everybody.